The storm had not stopped for 40 days. Lightning split the sky. Waves crashed like mountains. Inside a giant wooden ark floating on endless water, a man stood silently with trembling hands. Noah had spent years building that ark while the world laughed at him. Zen, what rain? But now the mockers were gone. Only faith remained. What if I told you that one chapter in the Bible explains why Noah built the ark, why Abraham left everything behind, why Moses challenged Pharaoh, and why David ran toward a giant instead of away from him? One chapter connects them all, not through power, not through miracles, but through one invisible force powerful enough to change history: faith. And that chapter is Hebrews 11. In a quiet village surrounded by olive trees and dusty roads, there lived a young boy named Eli. Every evening, he sat beside his grandfather, a wise old shepherd who carried a worn Bible wherever he went. The pages were faded, the corners bent, but one chapter seemed more treasured than all the others. One night, as the wind whispered through the trees, Eli finally asked, "Grandfather, why do you always read Hebrews 11? The old man smiled gently and opened the Bible carefully, as if he were holding treasure. "Because," he said, "this chapter teaches us how ordinary people change the world through faith." Eli leaned closer to the fire. The grandfather began to read. He spoke of Abel, who honored God with his offering; of Noah, who built an ark before a single drop of rain had fallen; of Abraham, who walked away from everything familiar without even knowing where he was going; of Sarah, who believed she could have a child long after hope seemed dead; of Moses, who stood before the most powerful king on earth; of Rahab, who risked her life for strangers; of David, who faced a giant with only a sling and faith in God. "But grandfather," Eli interrupted, "those were heroes." The old shepherd shook his head slowly. "No, my child. There were people who felt fear, just like we do. They doubted. They struggled. Some even failed badly. What made them different was not strength. It was faith." The fire crackled softly as silence filled the room. Then the grandfather read the verse that stood at the center of the entire chapter. "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Eli frowned slightly. How can someone believe in something they cannot see? The old man smiled. That is exactly why Hebrews 11 matters more than almost any chapter in the Bible. It teaches us that faith is trusting God before the miracle happens. He paused and stared into the flames. Then he began telling a story from his own life. Years earlier, a terrible drought had struck the village. Crops failed, wells dried up, families packed their belongings and left in desperation. But every single morning, the shepherd walked into his dry field carrying a bag of seeds. And every day, people laughed at him. "There's no rain," they mocked. "The ground is dead. You're wasting your time." Yet he kept planting, day after day, week after week, under the burning sun. One morning, the grandfather whispered. Dark clouds appeared over the hills. The boy's eyes widened. Rain began to fall, not a little, but enough to flood the empty wells and soften the hardened earth. And because I had planted in faith before the rain came, my field became the first one to bloom. He looked directly at Eli. That is Hebrews 11. The boy sat silently, thinking deeply. The old shepherd continued. Hebrews 11 is called the Hall of Faith because it shows that every great story in Scripture begins with someone trusting God when it made no sense. Noah built before rain. Abraham traveled before directions. Moses spoke before victory. David ran before the giant fell. Faith always moves before the miracle. The wind outside grew stronger. But grandfather, Eli asked softly, why is faith so important? The old man closed the Bible halfway and answered, because faith is the heartbeat of the entire Bible. Without faith, Noah never builds. Without faith, Abraham never leaves. Without faith, Moses never returns to Egypt. Without faith, David never faces Goliath. Without faith, Peter never steps onto the water. And without faith, he said quietly, most people give up before God finishes their story. Eli stared at the old Bible resting in his grandfather's hands. For the first time, he understood. Hebrews 11 was not simply a chapter about ancient people. It was a mirror, a reminder that ordinary people can do impossible things when they trust God. Years passed. Eli grew older and faced storms of his own. Loss, fear, uncertainty, and impossible choices. There were nights when prayers seemed unanswered and days when hope felt distant. But whenever fear whispered that he should quit, he remembered Hebrews 11. He remembered Noah building, Abraham walking, Moses standing, David running, and he remembered his grandfather's words. Faith always moves before the miracle. Then one evening, many years later, Eli sat beside a fire with his own grandson. The child looked at the old worn Bible and asked, "Grandfather, why is Hebrews 11 so important?" Eli smiled, the very same smile. And once again, the chapter of faith was opened.